Now, I do believe we are slowly coming out of this period of time where people are dead set on transing kids. I think that the people who are critical of that are finding their voices, and therefore there are more and more people in the mainstream, so to speak, who are at least willing to entertain the conversation about should we be cutting off the healthy breasts and genitals of children. And I think that's shown by the fact that Washington State University decided to offer a couple continuing medical education courses. And let me kind of explain what those are. So obviously you go to med school, right? You become a doctor. Well, science and medical knowledge is changing all the time. So you have to have some continuing medical education to keep up with new research, new information, new treatments, etc. And so it makes sense, right? You go back, catch up, brush up on some things, and then go back and continue to serve your patients. So the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine had created and crafted a couple courses that, just as the name suggests, look at the issue of transgender care through the lens of evidence-based gender medicine. And you could look at these as being, gender critical or critical of this idea that we should medicalize people who believe that they were born in the wrong bodies. And so there's a couple of them. I'll read the titles. One of them is called Transgender Identities in the Brain. What do we know? How Problems in Adult Gender Medicine Launched Pediatric Transitions. Gender Dysphoria, the Role of Social and Cultural Context in the 21st Century. Misconceptions in Youth Gender Medicine. Gender dysphoria treatment guidelines, assessment of trustworthiness, managing gender dysphoria in youth, European practice changes, and hormonal interventions for gender dysphoria in minors, international debate. So these continuing medical education classes, it wasn't even like courses that were like, don't cut off the breasts of young girls. It was like, hey, science is changing, Europe has changed course. Here's the evidence that they've used to do that. Let's at least talk about it. Let's at least debate it. Let's examine it from an academic perspective. So credit to Washington State University. They decided to adopt some of these continuing medical education courses that were brought to them by the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine. That was until, of course, a trans activist wrote a piece about how harmful they were. So the trans activist, her name is Erin Reed. His name, I don't even know anymore. Trans activist and a reporter who has a blog called Erin in the Morning. The headline, Washington State University credentials anti-trans hate group to teach medical providers. So they call this Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine, SEGM, a trans hate group, because of course, anyone who questions anything has to be filled with hate. So Erin wrote, the Southern Poverty Law Center has dubbed the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine an anti-LGBTQ hate group for its role in proliferating pseudoscience and transphobic policies. And that just tells you everything you need to know about the Southern Poverty Law Center. And they accuse this evidence-based gender medicine group of proliferating pseudoscience. Okay, we all know who's proliferating pseudoscience, and it's not the people who are urging caution when it comes to medicalizing kids. So that piece airs, and then what happens? Well, you know what happens. Washington State University folds. This from the New York Sun. Pressure by transgender activists forces Washington State University to suspend courses critical of medical gender treatments for minors. I hate that headline. Because it says pressure by transgender activists forces WSU. No, nobody forced them. They just caved to a woke mob. And it's the exact reason those types of courses are necessary. One trans blogger calls this a hate group and says that it's pseudoscience. So the university, which went through a rigorous process to adopt these continuing medical education courses, all of a sudden says, okay, never mind. Never mind, we'll go back and we'll look at it again. It makes no sense in the world. And so are we just going to fold on moving medicine forward every time some angry activist says it's hateful? It's absolutely insane. So Dr. Erica Lee is a pediatrician in Spokane, and a little teaser, she is our guest, I think either this week or next week on Sundays with Subscribers. We haven't quite decided yet, but we are going to be speaking to her. And she's a practicing pediatrician in Washington State. She also helps kind of train the future generation of pediatricians. And she wrote an open letter to WSU urging them to change course. It says, please stand for truth, an open letter from Dr. Erica Lee. In it, she writes, there's a serious clinical knowledge gap in the United States regarding how best to care for children and adolescents claiming gender-related distress. To treat these patients responsibly, that gap must be filled. SEGM, as an organization dedicated to scientific rigor and the principles of evidence-based medicine, has been a leader in trying to do exactly that. Unfortunately, any effort to apply the same standards of evidence and ethics to pediatric gender medicine that we apply to every other area of medicine inevitably faces ferocious opposition, just as we see now. It is obvious that the activists driving the current harassment campaign did not review all of the course materials before demanding their removal. There simply was not enough time to do so, given that the series included more than 7 hours of lectures and panel discussions. This should come as no surprise. The primary concern of these activists is not the content, but their own political objective: suppressing inquiry and open dialogue. That objective is fundamentally at odds with a university's highest mission, the pursuit of truth. And I've gotten a chance already to speak with Dr. Erica Lee. She is so smart. And the way that she talks about these things very clinically, as a doctor should, very black and white, fact, not fact, best practices, not best practices. And she makes a tremendous point that the rigor and standards that we hold other areas of medicine to just go whoop, whoop, out the window when we talk about transing children. And all because what? Some people want to yell and scream loud, and so we just throw medical standards out the window? So shame on WSU, frankly. Shame on WSU for so quickly, after doing so much research of these courses before adopting them, saying, okay, yeah, don't yell at us anymore. Stop sending us mean emails and making mean phone calls. We'll do away with them. We'll do away with them. It is absolutely beneath an institution of higher learning to react in that way. So we're going to have more from Dr. Erica Lee, and we'll be tracking to see what what Washington State University decides to do. Do they bring these courses back, which they should, if the goal is really to look at all available information and evidence around this sort of care for youth? Do they bring the courses back, or do they cave in to one trans activist with a blog?